Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. Today, I'm talking to Lisa Washburn. This is the sister-in-law of Jen with Christian Fire Poppy. She actually made her first appearance on my channel in the form of a poem when I was starting the Flood the Earth challenge. This was a couple years ago. We had the goal of sharing 10,000 copies of the Book of Mormon, which we did. But shortly after we started that challenge, that was the time. It was around the time that I started doing interviews for any women that wanted to start YouTube channels. And Jen was one of those. She actually started as a blog, but then I convinced her to go ahead and start a YouTube channel. And it took a lot of courage for her to do that, but she has done an amazing job. But around that same time, Lisa had written a poem to go along with the Flood the Earth challenge to share the Book of Mormon. And it was something that you could, give along with your Book of Mormon. And it was holiday themed. It was Christmas time. And so now we're actually talking to her via Zoom call because she has written a book. And so I wanted to promote this book, talk about it, and then we also wanted to talk about the Second Coming. So Lisa, what is the name of the book?
The book, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah. I just have to say, for everybody who loves Jared's channel, Jared seems like just such a great, down-to-earth, sweet guy, and that is 100% true. Knowing him in person has just been a pleasure, and Jared, you're awesome. Thank you for being just a genuine person behind the screen. So
thank you so much.
My book is called Emily's Tree, and I have a physical one right here. This is a book that I wrote. It took me 8 years to complete, and it's finally done. It just came out on Amazon in February, and I'm super excited.
Wow. So it's been going on for 8 years. So first of all, how did you get the idea for the book? And that's a long time. So you must have put a lot of thought into this, or maybe it's just been delayed. I don't know. What's the story of it?
So 8 years ago, at the time, my youngest child was a baby. She was my kid number 5, and I now have 7. I was sneaking away for a temple session while my husband watched the baby, and I was in the temple pondering, and I felt like this is something that I should do. I should write a novel that could introduce young people to the church. And I took that prompting seriously and started thinking about how I could possibly accomplish that. I'd never written a novel before. I was a mom with young kids. It seemed kind of like an impossible task, but I decided to go forward with faith and a little bit of courage. So that's how it started. I always thought it would be cool to write a book. I got my bachelor's degree in English, but I never seriously considered doing it until that morning in the temple.
So before this point, though, you did enjoy writing, just in general? Because I mean, you provided us with that poem for the challenge, so I assume that maybe that's one of your talent skills or something that you like to do.
Yes. Yeah. I've always loved writing. I'd written some short stories in the past, and obviously a little bit of poetry. I've done I used to do a personal blog and enjoy just writing kind of personal narrative essays. So yeah, I had been doing things up to that point that kind of, I was on the writing path already. Okay.
And then I guess we should have said this before. So you're in Indiana, right?
Yes.
If I remember correctly. So what temple would that have been that you went to? I'm just curious. Was it the Indianapolis temple?
Yeah, the Indianapolis temple. So, and it's actually 6 minutes away from our house.
Oh,
which is really awesome.
Yeah.
We actually moved out here almost 14 years ago, back when the temple was nothing more than just a plot of land. So it had been decided that's where it would be built. We knew where that plot of land was, so we decided to live in the city, which is adjacent to my husband's work. So it worked out.
That's a good call. Where did you move
Yeah,
from? Because I
not by
know
that temple.
Jen, she's originally from Illinois, right? And so you're married to her brother. Is that why you guys are in the Midwest and where you're at?
Yeah, we met at BYU, and then he went out to grad school in Illinois. And I think a part of why we chose that school is because we had his parents still out there in Chicago, where he had grown up. And then after grad school, he got his first job in Indiana, which is, one state over. And then his parents moved to Utah, actually. So we are representing the families out here in the Midwest.
Because you are originally from Utah, or where
I'm
do
from
you?
Utah. Yep.
Where in Utah?
Provo.
Okay, I was just there in March. There was a social media conference, and believe it or not, I'd never been to Center Street before.
Uh,
Such a nice little area. Um, and I actually didn't realize that the Provo City Center Temple is right there next to where we were. I was like, oh, we're really close to the temple, so I went over there after the conference. But yeah, I like Provo. Um, okay, so really cool. So you've decided to write this book. What, just in general, what's it about?
it's about a girl named Emily. She's a high school senior. And I should say this is a young adult novel. I call it a faith-inspired romance. And this girl is struggling with some issues of poverty in her family relationship struggles, but she's a brilliant artist, and she really wants to go to college. She's been having this recurring dream since she was a young child about being in a beautiful place. She doesn't know where she's at, but there's trees surrounding a lake, and she sees people getting into boats and sailing off into onto the other side of the lake, and she doesn't know what it means. Someone in the dream she has an encounter that leaves her thinking maybe her year of turning 18 is something big will happen for her. So she thinks that's going to be college, and it turns out to be something even more. So this is a book about her faith journey. She ends up running into some missionaries when she reaches a low point that year and starts a faith journey. So I think it's a beautiful story that has just been really neat to watch develop over time, and to watch Emily go through this journey and see what it's like to learn about Jesus Christ.
All right, very good. Yeah, that's interesting. We've actually, on my channel recently, we've been talking about being at low points in life, and how it's interesting that, I don't know if you felt this way or if you've had these impressions, but it seemed like this last general conference was really addressing people having trials and knowing that God is near. He knows you personally. He knows exactly what you're going through. And I've had like a bunch of people in my life that seem to be going through pretty severe trials. At first, I kind of thought I was the only one, but I tend to think that there's maybe something more general going on, just because, like, not just because of those in my life, but because of recent messages, whether it was in general conference or on social media posts or at the BYU women's conference. I don't know if you saw that talk by Tamara Runia, but
I
she
didn't.
totally addressed that. So it makes me wonder if like something is going on. But so
I think it might tie into our later topic. We'll talk about that later.
okay. Emily's tree, is it, I mean, did you draw inspiration from real events in your life or people you know, or did you just like completely just come up with this idea?
I think I did draw a lot on the missionary work I'd seen going on around me after we moved out here to Indiana. I did not serve a mission myself, and I was born into the church, so I didn't go through a conversion process in the same way Emily does in my book. But I do have friends out here in Indiana who've gone through that process, and I've been with missionaries and just seen the journey start to finish. And I've been really inspired with what a beautiful journey it is, and how it's a little different for everyone, but that you can see the hand of the Lord through each person's journey. And I feel like all of our journeys are definitely sacred. And I think even a fictional journey of faith contains a lot of truth in it and is a sacred space that we can learn from. So yeah, I guess that's how I got inspiration from, just a conglomeration of many experiences that I watched over the years.
And I can't remember if you already said it, but where does the story take place?
It's in Indiana.
Yeah, of course.
Fictional town in Indiana.
All right.
Which I think is kind of fun because I grew up in Utah, and it's just different being outside of the Utah bubble, I guess. There are beautiful things about Utah, and I've learned a lot coming out here. So yeah, it's fun to write about it.
Yeah. Have you experienced many tornadoes in Indiana?
You know what? One went through my town here right by the temple last year.
Oh, by the temple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the temple. So the tornado didn't hit the temple, but it was in the same town where we're at, and it knocked down. It did damage some buildings, a number of homes. Just kind of went on maybe a 4-mile path, kind of diagonally through our town. So that was scary. That was the first time I'd ever had a tornado like close to me. Made me grateful we have a basement. So, weekly tornado sirens for practice is something we're used to now.
So I had a comment the other day. I was talking about tornadoes because it turns out in this Kansas City area, at least for April, it's broken the record for number of tornadoes. And it's not even peak season yet. I guess the month of May is peak where I am.
Okay.
And somebody had asked, how do you deal with tornadoes? Like, are they scary? What has been your experience? Like, are you ever worried about tornadoes, or has it been like a big issue for you? Like, how would you answer that person?
It's other than that one experience last year when there really was a tornado close by. We've been in the Midwest for almost 20 years. And my husband longer before that, growing up in Chicago, and never had a run-in with a tornado, either of us personally. So that's good. I feel like it's easy to become a little desensitized over the years. You get, several tornado warnings throughout the year, the spring season every year. And some old timers will be like, we don't need to go to the basement. Nothing's happening. But I still gather all my kids and we go down, and so I get a little bit nervous. But I'd say, chances of getting blown away by one are pretty small. But I remember the first time that happened, we were in Illinois, and I had a bunch of young women actually sleeping at my house. It was like a camp prep thing, and I started pulling stuff out of the closet. It's like, girls, we got to get in here. And we had another leader who's like, no, we're fine. We don't need to hide. So I think she was a little jaded, but it's good to seek shelter when you hear the siren.
Oh, so the sirens were going off in that case?
Yeah, they were. And she was ignoring them.
Yeah, I personally would probably take cover because I'm not going to play around with that. But yeah, my answer to that comment, I shared it, I think, in a live stream, but I said that I'm not really any more afraid of tornadoes than I am of lightning or earthquakes. Like, yeah, you do have lightning, you do have earthquakes, and they affect people. Some people die from lightning, but the chances of it happening to you are very slim. And at least with tornadoes, you do get a heads up. You pay attention to the weather. Usually it'll come in the form of like, oh, there's marginal risk for severe weather, or there's like a severe storm watch, or like a severe storm watch or warning. And so, like, I don't think I've ever been caught off guard with tornadoes, except for last year. I saw that there was a message that said marginal risk for severe weather, and I'd seen that so many times back in Kansas, and so I was just like, it's fine. And I looked outside, and everything looked fine. So we went to where we were going to go, but then on the way back, it got really dark really fast, and we weren't able to get home in time. And so we took shelter at the Independence Visitor Center when this tornado hit Independence, but it wasn't near really where I was at. But yeah, I'm generally not afraid of that. So, last thing about your book, unless you have anything else that you want to add, is this just a single book, or is it going to be part of a series? Or do you plan on making other books? Maybe just standalone books, or like, have you thought about doing a trilogy or anything like that?
I've had a lot of people ask if I'll do a sequel. There is room for developing a sequel. What happens with Emily? What happens with the guy that she starts dating in the book? And some ends that could get, loose ends that could turn into something fun as a sequel. And I always say when my youngest child is in kindergarten, I will revisit that. So there may be a sequel then, which will be in 3 years. I'm also interested in potentially writing some historical fiction based around the pioneer time period, and drawing from my pioneer ancestors' personal experiences. There's some amazing stories in my family history and my husband's that I think would just be really fun to highlight as historical fiction. Some really great things to learn from them. So those are some ideas I thought of. Right now, I'm just kind of recovering from the last 8 years of getting this book ready. But as soon as I've got just a little bit more time on my plate, I'm excited to get back to writing, and I'll keep you posted on what that turns into.
I'd be really interested if you do that, like a pioneer story. I like that kind of stuff, especially, I guess, since moving here, I've gotten more into church history because of my channel and moving here. So I'm really into that. So I would definitely be interested in that if you do it. So yeah, do let us know. Okay, so the second coming. Now, Jen is very passionate about it. That's why she started first a blog and then a channel, and she's done very well. And I talk to her pretty regularly, probably like once or twice a month, and she has just all sorts of ideas. And of course, I'm into it. So with you, like, how you've been a lifelong member of the church, and I'm curious, like, how have you perceived the second coming over time? Is it something that has ever really stood out to you? Were there times in your life where you're like, oh my gosh, I think it is close? Or what's your overall thoughts on the second coming?
Yeah, this is fun to think about a little bit ahead of time. Like, the second coming is something that makes me really excited. Anytime we sing a hymn in church about the second coming, I just get really, really excited. I was actually looking this up today in the index in the hymn book, and there are over 30 hymns that are about the second coming. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
But yeah, Come Ye Children of the Lord is one of my favorites. The last verse talks about all arrayed in spotless white, we shall dwell in truth and light. And I just love those words. I just think it's going to be so exciting when it happens. So it's been a fun topic to think of over the years. And I feel like the second coming is like the work is accelerating. President Nelson said, I was just looking it up today. He said, "You see what is happening right before our eyes. I pray that we will not miss the majesty of this moment. The Lord is indeed hastening his work." And I know over my lifetime, I've seen the Lord's work hastening. I've seen Satan's work hastening. And I just feel like, I feel like it's coming. I don't know when, but I feel like for me personally, I feel like I'm getting more and more prepared personally. And so that also helps it feel like, at least in my personal life, it's coming quickly. So
Did you feel like anything was going wrong? Oh my gosh, sorry. Did you feel like anything was going on around the time of President Gordon B. Hinckley? Like, how old were you around that time? Were
I was
you?
like a teenager.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because we're probably close in age.
I think so.
Were you born in the 80s or 90s?
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay,
80s,
80s for both of us.
right in the middle.
Um, did that like, and no shame if it didn't, but did that capture your attention at all? I felt like the way that I perceived it, I was kind of thinking about the second coming back then, just because I guess all the temples that were being constructed with President Hinckley, the conference center, like, did you have any special thoughts around that time? That you
Hmm.
remember?
You know, I know that I remember feeling really impressed that President Hinckley was always, I feel like there was always something new, something, another way he was teaching us to be a little bit better. And so I think that did feel like, kind of like with President Nelson, similar, like things are moving along. Let's get ready. Let's go. Um, so yeah, I did feel that a little bit, but I was also a teenager and, just kind of not thinking that
Yeah.
much about bigger things. So,
Yeah. Do you remember at all the downtown Salt Lake tornado in 1999? Like, did you,
yes, I remember. Yeah. I was living in
whether you were thinking about the
Chicago.
second coming or not, like, how did you experience that event?
Wow. At first I thought that was impossible. I didn't realize tornadoes could go through Utah. I'd always been told we were safe from tornadoes,
Yeah,
but
right.
but that happened. Part of me wondered, um is this punishment for something, something bad we're doing? Or I remember it took out, one of the trees right next to the temple. Um anyway, I guess I was kind of surprised, but also like felt grateful that, people were safe and the temple was safe.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was kind of surprising and also, seemed like a sign of the times to me, um, having
Yeah.
severe weather
Just
events.
with both of us feeling, and probably most, Utahns feeling like something like that wouldn't happen in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And if it did in the valley, if I had to guess, I would be like, well, if there ever was a tornado in the Salt Lake Valley, it would probably be like in the middle of the valley, because my very rudimentary understanding is that the mountains somehow interfere with the development of tornadoes. And so they probably need more space without
Yeah.
obstructions. And so maybe the center of the valley. And where it happened was, downtown, which is like pretty much right up against the mountains there, right by Ensign Peak and City Creek Canyon and stuff like that. So it seemed really very, very odd. And not only that it struck Salt Lake, but I mean, it struck downtown. Basically it touched the temple in Temple Square. It was like right there. Um, so I don't know if I necessarily thought about the second coming, but I definitely felt like it was a type of sign. Maybe I thought about the second coming. I don't know. It was too long ago. But then, I started thinking about all these other things like the conference center. That was like a very exciting thing for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be massive, and there's going to be a garden on top. Um, it was very exciting. It was also around the same time that Salt Lake was putting in tracks, the light rail system.
Yeah.
As a teenager, I was very enthusiastic about that because it was an easy way for me to go downtown on my own and go to Temple Square and stuff. But and then on top of that, in 2002, we had the Winter Olympics. Um, and I had heard some people talking about, someone had said like, "Oh, this fulfilled a prophecy." And at the time, I didn't know if that was true or just somebody making stuff up. But that is something that President Hinckley said in General Conference. He said that it fulfilled a prophecy of Brigham Young, that the emperors and ambassadors, would essentially come to Salt Lake, in that this was it. Well, he said it was a fulfillment of that prophecy. Did you have any
Yeah.
special feelings about the the 2002 Olympics at all? Like in that
Yeah,
day?
I was a high schooler then, and I remember I was taking Spanish at the time, and they gave if you wanted to, you could be a student ambassador, and they gave us a pin showing the language we could speak, and we could go help out at these events and help in whatever language we were learning to speak, and that was really cool. I got chosen to go watch a Paralympic event after the Olympics that was using the ski slopes that were prepared for the Olympics. And that was just a really cool experience for me to get to go be there at a Olympic setting and watch blind people ski down black diamonds. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember watching the fireworks for the opening ceremony. We drove out just to where we could see them down in the valley, and I remember feeling like, wow, this is a big deal. Like it's here in Salt Lake, and that's really special. The church is getting all this exposure, and it's just a positive experience for so many people to come here. So yeah, now that you're putting, all these things together, I feel like I was also feeling that momentum of everything developing, everything happening. And yeah, I definitely think that is fulfilling prophecy. It's building toward, we're on this upward trajectory of getting ready for the second coming. And those are all little things adding up to it coming whenever it comes.
Yeah. And then we're going to have this round 2 of the Winter Olympics in 2034. So it's just like
excited.
It makes me think. I mean, I don't know, but I wonder if it's a type of situation kind of like, so when Joseph Smith led the Brethren on Zion's camp to try and reclaim Jackson County, they came all the way here to Liberty, but stopped short of crossing the Missouri River, and because the Lord commanded it, and they weren't meant to go and take their houses and properties back at that time. But it's said that Brigham Young, he was part of Zion's camp, and he gained a lot of experience. And because of that experience, he was prepared to lead the saints across the plains to Utah. And so I wonder if in like 2002, the church got to experience the Olympics, and it seems like everything went well. President Hinckley said it was a great experience for the church. We got a lot of exposure in newspapers and radio, and just all the people coming here to Salt Lake. And I'm wondering if now, with that experience under our belt, if we're a little bit more primed for when it happens the next time. So that's something that I think about. And now the light rail system has been developed even more. There's more lines, and you have the front runner, which is the train that connects with the light rail system. So there's more infrastructure now. There's a lot that's changed since 2002. So I feel like this time around, it'll be an even more successful Olympics. But so yeah, okay. So you had all the things going on around the year 2000. That's when we got the Living Christ. That's when the Special Witnesses of Christ video series came out, where all the apostles did like a video recording of their testimony, Special Witness of Christ. So there were a lot of things. And then we had the 2 wars that happened, Afghanistan and Iraq. Again, I don't know that I necessarily connected it too much to the second coming, but I think I kind of did. I just felt like, oh my gosh, things are crazy right now. But then after a while, for me, things kind of like slowed down during President Monson's presidency, as far as like thinking about signs of the times and the second coming. It really slowed down for me. But then came President Nelson. Is it the same for you? Like,
Yeah,
how did you experience President Nelson and his like really big emphasis on the second coming? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we did get just a little breather, and then President Nelson was like, buckle up your seatbelts. Here we go.
Yeah.
It was quite the ride. Yeah, I actually thought a lot about the second coming once he became the prophet. And I remember feeling like I need to be writing down all these invitations. He gave so many invitations for things he wanted us to do to learn how to receive revelation and to go to the temple more, and just so many ways he wanted us to grow and to accelerate our rate of growth. So yeah, definitely a change there. I like how you were talking about preparation just a minute ago. I was thinking about preparation and being prepared for the second coming. And that's what he was trying to get us to do. And I was thinking how really it's our young people. It's the readers of my young adult book who are going to be preparing the rest of us, the rest of the world for the second coming. The missionaries who are preparing the way for Christ, just like John the Baptist prepared the way for Jesus the first time. It's been on my mind because missionaries are in my book, and my oldest son is now a missionary. I just think we need to recognize and realize that the power of preparation is going to be in our youth, and we need to help prepare them to do that. So there's my plug for the youth. They're amazing.
With President Nelson, like whenever you started thinking about the second coming more, was it just like when he became president of the church, or did it not really set in until 2020? Because I think for some people, 2020 was a year that made a lot of people start thinking more about, end times, just because it was such a unusual year. Like so what do you think it was for you?
I don't know. I think it was right from the beginning, like his first talk as prophet. I think it was all of those really targeted invitations. And I could just see the power that would come if I followed that, and that would come for us as a people if we all followed that. And there's just so much power in in those invitations, really. So I hope most of us acted on them. I was trying, wasn't perfect, but yeah, I think just all along through his whole time as prophet. So now President Oaks is pulling back a little on announcing new temples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're going to complete the ones that we have. That I'm really excited to see how we prepare for the second coming under his leadership too.
What do you think about like all the changes? Because one of the first things that I noticed with President Nelson is as soon as he became president of the church, there were big changes that were made with home teaching and visiting teaching, becoming ministering, with the church pulling out of the Boy Scouts program. And there's just been like these big, massive changes. And from what I've seen, because I have a spreadsheet where I try and keep track of all these changes, it doesn't seem like those have slowed down. The announcement of temples, yes, because they said, okay, we're not going to do it in general conference anymore. We need to focus on the ones that have been announced. We need to work on actually constructing those before we announce more. But there's still been really big changes. Did that hit you at all when President Nelson became president of the church? Because there were things that I thought would just always be around forever, like home teaching and visiting teaching. That was a big shock to me.
Yeah, I think when those changes started happening, I had to step back and kind of reevaluate and realize, the difference between doctrine and policy, right? Some of these things become so entrenched in our church culture, and even just our daily neighborhood culture, especially if you live among lots of members, that I had to, remind myself, wait, it's okay. Visiting teaching isn't, an establishment that's going to be, necessarily rise with us into the heavens. That can change. So yeah, it was something I guess I personally had to kind of reconcile with. And I think that's process has helped me become more flexible now and to just be ready for more positive changes and to see the good in all those changes.
Do you expect that there will be more changes, that this trend will continue?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty confident that it will. So
yeah, recently, so there's been some big ones, like the way that temples are announced now, that they're going to be announced in the area in which they're going to be constructed. Number one, but number two, that they can be announced by a member of the area presidency. I can't remember if it has to be the president or if it can just be any member of the area presidency. I'd have to double check my notes. Uh, the doing away of the Saturday evening session of General Conference. That's another one of those things that, like, I never saw it as like doctrine, but I just thought it was something that would just always be there. But no, it's gone. Um, the lowering of the mission ages, both for men and for women. Now they're both 18. At 18, they can both go. It's great. The sleeveless garments for women, like that's something I thought would never ever change. What do you think about those things? Like, do you feel like it's been a lot, or I don't know?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a lot. I feel like, yeah, whenever I see something that's surprising, like the garments, I think about, well, back in the 1800s, they looked a lot different. It wasn't modest to show your wrists or ankles back then. So, there's been a trend of change in that way. And yeah, but it has seemed like a lot. I'll tell my kids, remember we had 3 hours of church just a few years ago. And back when when your grandparents were kids, they were going to primary on weekdays or taking the sacrament on a weekday, right? Like that must have been a big change for them to go to 3 hours of church just on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about this upcoming schedule at church? Supposed to take place supposed to start in September, I think, where we have like the second hour is divided up between Sunday school and then either, for women, Relief Society, for men, priesthood. What did you think about that announcement? And do you feel like it's going to be good, or like, do you have any concerns about it?
Oh, I'm so excited. I think it'll be so great for the youth to meet every single week and see each other and check in. I'm also excited that they have a new curriculum for the youth. It won't just be come follow me. They have a new topics that come from the For Strength of Youth guide. And I feel like that was something that really strengthened me as a young woman, hearing those lessons about personal preparedness, divine worth, motherhood, temple prep. Those are all foundational for me. And I was kind of sad when I realized my kids weren't getting those at church, which then I knew I needed to step it up at home. But now they're bringing it back, and they'll also still have Come Follow Me in Sunday school and seminary. So I feel like it's going to be really great. The only thing I wish was a little different is if they could add in more hymns during second hour so that our budding pianists can learn how to accompany. I'm a piano teacher, and I noticed that's really dropped off. So, any seminary teacher or young women's leader or young men's leader who can encourage those kids to practice accompanying, I think it'll bless them later on. So,
yeah. Some of the controversy around it has been like, is there going to be enough time for lessons? Like, lessons are going to have to be really to the point.
yes.
Maybe more prepared and maybe less, going off into the weeds, as a lot of times, lessons do when people start just like having side conversations about things. Do you think that it's going to go okay with like the shorter classes?
I know my 12-year-old is really excited because it means when she has to teach young women, it's only going to be 25 minutes. So I feel like, especially for the youth who are learning to teach, it's the perfect time frame. I'll miss having 50-minute Relief Society and Sunday school lessons, but I think the adults will be able to adjust, and I think this is the perfect time frame for our youth. So fingers crossed.
What do you think about the new young women, like the age groups with the new names? Like, how did that go for you, or what did you think?
Yeah. Well, we're not doing Beehive, Miami, Laurel anymore, are we? I think someone was telling me, she said, I think we needed a time period where the young women's groups were just called by number, by the age, to let us kind of get some time and space away from those old names so we could be prepared to receive these newer names. And I think that may be true. So I am excited that the girls are those 3 distinct groups now. I think they line up great with the young men. The names are a little bit long, but you could shorten it to the Faith, Hopes, and Lights if you wanted. And I think there's a lot of beautiful meaning behind those names. So I actually have a friend who, she has a YouTube channel. She's a singer-songwriter, and I was doing a play date with her and her little kids at a park the day after the announcement came out. And we were talking about it, and she decided she was going to write a song about those names. And so she did. She wrote a song in 24 hours, and it's really beautiful. She put it on Instagram, hoping to get it published and used by the church. But just reminded me of how much we can learn from those names. So I think it'll be a good thing.
What's the name of her channel? I'll put the link in the description box below.
Ooh, well, it's Bonnie Wright is her name. And I'll have to check her channel name. I'll let you know, Jared. You can put it in. Yeah.
So the thing with the names, let me know. I mean, I was never in Young Women's. The names Beehive, Maya Maid, and Laurel, just when I think about it, it doesn't feel like they have much meaning. Like Beehive, yes, because that's one of the symbols of the church, and it clearly, when you think about bees, you think about the fact that they're part of a hive, a colony. They work together. If you're from Utah, you're used to associating that symbol with industry and the common good and stuff like that. Zion people, basically.
Yeah.
Maya Maids, I didn't know until I did a live stream that Maya, well, do you know what Maya stood for or what it was?
Mutual Improvement Association.
Yeah. So I didn't know that until just like a week or two ago. So I guess it kind of makes sense. And then with Laurel's, I looked it up, and on the church website, it said that it had to do with like laurel wreaths, how it's historically that's been a symbol of like in Roman times being like a champion of like a sports competition, or it could be viewed as like royalty, stuff like that. But so I'm not going to criticize past church leaders, but I just feel like these names are better. But I don't know. How have you felt about the names? Did you like really associate with those names and those age groups when you were going through Young Women's?
Not a whole lot. Like I guess I kind of took them for granted. I was always excited to move up to the next age group because it meant I was getting older. And so, Laurel's had this elevated status in my mind. I really wanted to be a Laurel someday. But yeah, they didn't hold a whole lot of meaning. And now these new names have kind of a connected theme, right? That really I can see young women's groups doing really beautiful things with for their new beginnings, firesides, the themes, youth themes throughout the year. So yeah, I would say definitely a big improvement.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
I think so as well. Well, so what is your perception? What has your perception been of President Oaks as we think about where the church is headed, the second coming? Do you feel like there's been like a big change since President Nelson, and we're still, at the very beginning of his presidency. We don't know how long it'll last, but what are your thoughts so far?
I think mostly I've been thinking about his emphasis on the family and on being ambassadors for peace. I feel like those are two big messages he's shared so far. And then also, I mean, once these changes to the young women's groups came out, I realized, change is going to keep happening. So it wasn't just a President Nelson thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think it will keep going forward. And I feel like we are just at the very beginning. So I'm not quite sure what to expect. But I am guessing the rate of change will not slow down from what President Nelson was leading us through. So, and that would just make sense with our acceleration toward the second coming. I think that just needs to be kind of our expectation from here on out. So, and speaking of second coming, Jared.
What was that?
Oh, I have a question. Do you have your 72-hour kits ready?
Yeah, we do. Over here, I got a closet. We have some like rucksacks from the army. Ones that I bought after the army. I didn't steal them from the army, but I like army rucksacks, and we do.
Good. Yeah. Over conference, we were reorganizing ours and just thinking about the second coming, natural disasters. I feel like the church doesn't maybe emphasize the 72-hour kits and food storage quite as much anymore, but I think it's still important. So there's a plug for temporal preparedness.
As I think about that, I think about what we were talking about earlier, how the Kansas City area has seen a record number of tornadoes for this time of year, for example, and I hope my house doesn't get hit, but yeah, it'd probably be a good idea to have emergency supplies, 72-hour kits and food storage and other things. But there have been some like pretty crazy things going on in nature. Last year, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. We had Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. It was the strongest, or I can't remember if they downgraded it. It at least tied for the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the Atlantic ever. There's been a lot going on. I have spreadsheets to track some of these things, and so I feel like that's one thing that we can be certain of, that there's going to be more and more chances that you might be affected by some of these natural disasters. There's also, I guess, the economy to think about, because nothing's certain. For all anybody knows, maybe there will be another Great Depression. So it's wise to have savings and have cash on hand and, just do all the things that you should do financially to be secure. So, yeah, for sure. That's something I don't talk about too much on my channel. Maybe I should. But when it comes to changes in the church, I feel the same way, that it's going to continue, potentially accelerate. But then I come across the problem, like, what else could possibly change? Like, since President Nelson until now, missionary work has really changed a lot, like with lowering of the age. We have the second edition of Preach My Gospel. And other things. We saw missionaries start to use like smartphones and tablets and using more technology. So it's like, just missionary work alone. Oh yeah, and then the young service missionaries, that's something that kind of came online during President Nelson's time. So already just with missionary work, so many things have changed. But it's like, Boy Scouts, that's gone now. So, and then ministering, now we have that, and our block schedule has been changed, and then we just saw another change just now, I guess. But it's like you get to a point where so many things have been changed, and I'm not complaining. I'm just wondering, like, what else could possibly change? Do you have any ideas on that? Like things? I mean, this gets into speculation territory, but have you had any like thoughts of like, oh, I wonder if the church, will do this because I think it would work better this way for a global church?
boy, I tend to just take things as they come. I haven't really thought too much, ahead to what I would change or what I think could change. I feel like a lot of the change is centered around the youth. The For Strength of Youth booklets have really changed over the years, and just there's not a list of do's and don'ts anymore. It's just all principle based. I feel like that was a huge change. So if, more things were to change, I would first look at our youth and the youth program. Even like now girls can be witnesses at baptisms, right?
Right.
And they can help more in the baptistry in the temple. And those are some other changes that have happened. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you, but I'm sure changes will happen.
I know.
For sure.
It's just for me right now, it's like hard to picture. Like with temples, for example, sometimes certain things change with like the endowment or I think one of the stories that came out recently is with this Linden, Utah temple in the initiatory rooms. It's no longer a thing where you go like from one area to another, how there's like the 4 areas that you kind of like rotate through. It's just, you just sit in the same place the whole time. So that's something that changed with temples recently, or at least with that temple. I don't know if like temples can be made any smaller or if there would be a need to do that. There was this rumor when I was growing up talking about how stake centers could be converted into temples. I don't know that there was ever anything to that rumor, but
I guess that's one thing. If you think about how the rate of family history work is accelerating, and especially now with AI, like there is no more indexing to be done online. It's done by AI, is my understanding. So
no more indexing,
no. In fact, just a year ago, my husband's the bishop, and he issued a challenge to the youth of our ward to index. They index thousands of names for our ward, and now they can't get on and do it anymore. The work is taken care of in other ways or by other people. So that just was amazing to me, and I think, well, if we're getting all these names to go to the temple, then there's got to be a way to expedite that work to actually do it. So whatever that entails, if more temples or more streamlined endowments, that's a possibility.
It's interesting times that we're living in. Anyway, I mean, we could go on and on about it, but I think this was a pretty good conversation. Talk to somebody else that's not necessarily someone doing a Second Coming YouTube channel, to see what someone like you would think about. I was especially interested to talk to you since you've moved from Utah to the Midwest, and so it's just, that was a nice conversation. But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. So everyone, I'm going to put the link for Lisa's book called Emily's Tree. It's going to be in the description box, so make sure to check that out. And maybe in a few years, we'll hear about a sequel or maybe another book. So we'll have to see. But thanks for coming on, and you have an amazing sister-in-law. And I've told you on the phone that you and Jen sound so much alike. Every single time it gets me. You have very similar voices, I think. But you guys are great. I'm glad that I've gotten to know both of you. And yeah, all right. Well, thanks again. We'll talk to you guys later.